I'm going to close here because I really do want to go to the rest of them, but I'm going to leave it alone. Let's do some summation. We tend to judge previous generations as opposed to understanding them. We do not view their advice as strategic for their era or even ours, not for duplication, definitely not because we disagree with them, or for educational purposes to develop our own strategies. We tend to discount our elders, their struggle, their fight, or previous generations and what they did. We tend to label them as this or that, as opposed to this and that. It is one thing to say that African Americans accepted the idea of segregation. That, of course, would be a this or that orientation. A this and that orientation establishes that African Americans strategically accepted a particular form of white supremacy for the purpose of making sure that the next generation of young people could live and thrive, which means they had hope and faith in strategy. Highly sophisticated philosophical people. When they are reduced, right, to bumper stickers, or this is an Uncle Tom, or this is a Yaza boss, ooh, that is so disrespectful to whatever they did so that they could get over. This is true for Ellison's protagonists, the generation that created segregation and the generation that opposed it, and of course for our generation. How do we know this? Because the lessons of World War I are not learned, and therefore World War II. The lessons of the New Deal are not heeded, and therefore the wealth gap continues. Black infant mortality, Black maternal mortality continues. We are hard-headed, but we are hard-headed because we believe in this or that. We tend to take things as good or bad, as opposed to recognizing that this orientation of the trickster God, this Elegba Eshu orientation that is embodied and signifying, gives us a notion to make the world more complex, because the world is always complex. If history does repeat itself, it is because it is one thing to see around corners and another thing to hear around them. Listen closely. The main problem with the protagonist up to this point is not his sight. It is his hearing. Every time he hears his culture, he can't identify it. Every time he hears his strategy, he can't identify it. He is so wedded to the light and his sight that he can't use his ears to listen, not just to the things that his grandparents are saying, but because they are tied to him. Think about this. The lineage between him and the grandfather is genetic, but the lineage between him and the doctor is experiential. It's almost like the doctor lived out his whole story and then came back and told him, hey, you should probably think about these things. He listens to neither.